I know it's really hard to spot narcissistic abuse. Often we end up thinking that we're in a normal relationship. In fact, I think toxicity has been normalized and that's why we miss it, that we don't realize that what we're putting up with is actually bad behavior. So today I'd like to talk about the 5 hidden signs, but actually we're going to talk about more than 5 hidden signs. We're going to get into at least 5 of them, things that we tend to see in a relationship that we sort of think that just comes with all relationships. You know, it's interesting because earlier this week I my podcast was about how we even victims don't recognize abuse. And in that podcast interview, Lisa Sunny happened to share a really horrific story of domestic violence. And one of the commenters on a YouTube video said that they would have to hear the abuser's side of the story in order for them to know what was the truth. And I think that's what we often face, is we end up acting like there's some outside arbiter of truth, and that everybody makes up stories, and that we somehow need to curate or maybe the better word is verify what's real or not real. And to me, even that's a toxic idea, a toxic thought, that there is some, am I saying that people are not capable of lying? Absolutely. Of course we do. We know that. Do people exaggerate what's happening in a relationship in order to make themselves look better? Absolutely. We know that's true too. But what we often fail to recognize is the amount of abuse that happens, that is just normalized, extremely normalized. Let me give an example that happened with me this week. I was talking to somebody who kind of resurfaced. I'm not on dating apps, so I'm not trying to look for anybody, but this person happened to be just somebody that I was aware of, that we once connected on a dating app. We never even met. I mean, the texting never got beyond meeting. But he circled back to say hi, was chatting with me, wanted to have a phone call, and it just wasn't going to work. So I said, hey, you know, not going to work tonight. Let's reschedule. I said, I've had a very frustrating day. I said, today's been just a very frustrating day. And then this person wrote to me, if your frustration is the worst that it gets, then you've lived a very charmed life. My thought was, I didn't say it was the worst day of my life. I said it's been a frustrating day, and I wasn't looking for somebody to put some cap on it or to evaluate how hard or not hard the day was. But this person basically shut down the conversation by saying, if that's the worst I ever experienced, then I've lived a very charmed life. It's just a strange comment. It's actually what that's called is a thought terminating. It's called a thought terminating cliche, which is that's what toxic positivity is thought terminating cliches, because essentially there's nowhere to go. You can't say another word. But this is the kind of thing that a lot of relationships have going in it, is that we are in a relationship. Here's one of the 5 signs that we often miss: that our partner is not empathic or empathetic about what we're experiencing in the relationship. They're not aware or connected to our sense of life, to what's happening in our bodies, in our feelings, how our day is going. They are disconnected from us. And so then they have this almost like this detached, unconcerned perspective, as if us talking about what's wrong or what's bothering us is asking for too much. And a lot of us have gotten used to feel like we're too much. To have an emotional reaction to something is too much. And that's a toxic sign. Now, does that mean your partner is a narcissist? No, I'm not saying that. But it does mean that this relationship is not emotionally supportive and maybe even emotionally abusive. So those are the things we're going to be talking about today. For those of you who are new to my platform or new to this channel, I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy. I'm a psychologist with over 20 years of counseling experience. And these days I'm retired, and I primarily promote content. I also lead group coaching, have an exclusive membership where I support survivors just like you. So I'm very excited that you're here, and that we're going to be talking about the 5 hidden signs of narcissistic abuse. And thank you so much for being here. If those of you who kind of don't know what the flow of this is like, generally I talk for the first 20, 30, maybe sometimes 40 minutes. And then we use the last 20 to 30 minutes to take your questions. And I already saw one commenter say that they get the bare minimum of their relationship, and somebody else said that they watched my story. Thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it. And several of you have already given me gifts, and I super, super appreciate that. So thank you for being here and spending time with me. We're going to talk about the 5 hidden signs, the things that we don't see that are problematic, things that are often normalized as just kind of typical things that happen in a relationship. Here's one of them, and that is, it's subtle. This is a subtle sign of disrespect. If you have somebody who kind of makes light of your problems, maybe even makes backhanded jokes, or even give you a backhanded compliment, that's a subtle sign of abuse. I don't know if many of us recognize that. It almost seems like that's kind of like locker room joking. Maybe it's something that we do at school, kind of like college or a bar kind of jest. But that's actually a minimization and a devaluation of a person's experience, a person's emotional well-being. We're insulting and attacking their ego. We're diminishing and saying that they are disrespect, that we have such little respect that we're willing to make them the butt of the joke. So really watch out for somebody who does that, who sort of like plays off everything is funny, and you end up being the person that's sort of the object of the sarcasm or whatever is the funny thing. It's not. You're a person. You deserve respect. You deserve someone to care about what you're experiencing and what you're going through. And that's a common sign that we typically don't see. We end up feeling, in fact, the victim who acts outrage or feels outrage, maybe they don't act outrage, but the victim feeling outrage is often, we end up putting them down and acting like they're overreacting. Like we'll say, you take a joke, when there's nothing about that situation that was really lighthearted or cute. It wasn't cute. It was at the expense of someone. That's the word I've been trying to find. It's been at the expense of someone. And we should care about every person. I think what we miss culturally, and certainly in the United States, I don't know if it's everywhere in the world, but what we certainly miss is that there should be equal value placed on every single person we're in contact with. That there is a sense of mutuality, like I see you, you see me, I create space for your emotions, you create space for my emotions. There should be a sense of just incredible respect for another person. And when we somehow like make somebody less than, or somebody is a scapegoat, or somebody is always seen as the comic relief, we're essentially saying that they don't deserve the same kind of respect that you would want for yourself. That's a really big thing to be watching out for. And it's something that we often just don't see as toxic or as abusive when it really is. Here's another one, and I know I got a lot of pushback for it when I spoke of this before, but I think it's important to understand is that it's back to this power inequity that we often see. So, for example, if you bring me in as a mentor, or you hire me as a counselor or as a coach, you're essentially saying that you believe I have an expertise and you want my advice. You want me to take a look at whatever it is that you share with me, and you're looking for me. You're giving me permission. Essentially, you're giving me permission to then give you feedback about what's happening in your life or about that problem, whatever the scope of the situation you're inviting me into. What we commonly do with each other is that we often act like we're critiquing each other when you've never been invited to hold that position. Like, let me give you an example of how it happens. If I share with you, hey, I just landed this really big deal, they'll say, hey, way to go. They'll say, I'm so proud of you. Way to go. Proud of me? I wasn't looking for a coach here, and you're not my parent, and I didn't hire you as an advisor. You're not a teacher. So why are you proud of me? Because people who are proud of are people who've been in a position of authority, who then end up feeling blessed or touched by our accomplishments because they've been invested in it because of their advice giving that they've given us. But we often will do this kind of the subtle one-up position. Essentially, that's what it is. It's a one-up position that says, I know better. I'm more experienced at this. Good for you for doing so well. Hey, way to go, so cool. Really? I mean, you've now essentially put that person one down as a learner to you when they never invited you into that role of authority or of mentorship or advice giving at all. So yeah, watch out for that too. It's common. I find a lot of people do this, and I think it's almost become I don't know why we do it. It's almost like become sort of shorthand for I don't know what else to say. I'm emotionally awkward here, and I want to like tell you way to go, but I don't know. So I then take the position of somehow I'm better than you and insult you subtly by saying, yeah, I'm so proud of you, or what, it's just weird. A better response would be to say, that's really wonderful. I bet you're really excited about that. In other words, I always think of it this way. Am I coming from a standpoint of one up? Or am I approaching it like a neighbor would approach, an equal approach from friend to friend? I think that is so important when we identify that coming at something from a position of equality. It's really, if you can kind of think of somebody that you really respect, that you know that you don't have anything to say to them, what would you say to that person in that situation? That's often the best thing to do, because somebody just said it's condescending. Exactly. It's less condescension when you do that. And I agree with you, Beverly. I think a lot of people just don't know what to say. And so they say these really awkward, bad things without really thinking about what it would feel like to receive that. But here's the other problem. If you're the person who's feeling awkward and you are saying and you don't even know what to say, sometimes that's the best thing to say. Isn't it weird where you just say, wow, I don't know what to say. That's so awesome. I'm kind of stunned. I'm speechless. Then I have that conveys a lot to me. I would be really touched by that. That's way better than to say, good for you, way to go. It's just interesting how we just sort of like cover up our ineptitude with worst behavior. We don't even recognize that we're doing it. We're kind of like tone deaf everywhere on everything, it feels like sometimes. But watch out for that subtle criticism, that one-upmanship. And I'll tell you, when you get into a toxic relationship, you will see it everywhere. Because narcissistic individuals or people with narcissistic traits, their insecurity and their shame-based, or even just their assumption of authority makes them always come in as the expert. I'll never forget my ex. My ex was, we were working at a vacation rental business, and we happened to be getting to know another vacation rental business property manager who was getting ready to run a certain kind of a implementation of a workflow study, something like that, something that my ex was familiar with, that apparently my ex had seen happen at one of the other former places of employment. And he kept saying, I wish I could be so involved. I have so much to offer. I'm thinking, what do you mean you have so much to offer? You probably have less education, this guy. You just were exposed to it because you happen to work at the other company. You're not a trainer on this implementation. You're not that kind of an expert. So why do you think you have so much to give to this new company who's trying to roll out something you've been around? But they do. They come in like an expert, and they think that, I mean, here's another example. I grew up on a dairy farm. For those of you guys who don't know, I grew up on a dairy farm, and my dad would regularly rebuild equipment and do all sorts of like stuff without even a manual. He just sort of seemed to know how to do this stuff. And I'm not that mechanically gifted like he was. He just was, but I'm not bad at figuring things out. I don't always need to pull out the instructions. And I'll never forget when I was putting together some lawn, like patio equipment, and my ex saw me do it, and he said, where's the instructions? Why have you not done that? Why have you not counted all the parts to make sure they're all here? And he made me stop. He made me stop, and we had to separate all the like screws in one bag and all the washers in another, and on and on and on, to make sure I had all the right parts before we started. And then he backtracked and make me start over. Now, do you think at my age this was the first time I'd ever put furniture together? Like from IKEA or wherever I happened to buy it? No, of course not. But see, they love to come in and act like they know more than you. And how many times have you seen, yeah, that's how I lose parts, good. How many times have you guys seen that kind of behavior? And then we write it off. We don't recognize that actually is somebody who's, one, missing the temperature of the room, recognizing they've not been invited into that role. That both speaks to a lack of self-reflection and a problem with empathy. And the other thing is, this is a person exerting control when they've not been requested. So that's also shows you this is a person who's like really struggling as a way to have a sense of their place and being okay with not being in control. So you're seeing all these red flags, but we often don't recognize these red flags when they're right there in front of us. I know I didn't. I mean, anybody who's watched my story knows that I didn't see the red flags. And by the way, that event happened before we got married, and I didn't call off the wedding. I mean, the me today would have been thinking, yeah, I probably should have, that should have been a good sign, don't go forward, you know. But how many times have we give people the benefit of the doubt? That's the problem. We end up saying to ourselves, oh, they've had a bad day, or they're probably hungry, or maybe that's how things were done in their house and they don't know better, when really it's actually this signaling to you a really big thing about how this person sees themselves in the world and how they see you in the world as well. And we need to really pay attention to that as a sign of toxicity. So here's another one, and that is triangulation. We often miss triangulation. So let me explain what triangulation is. Think of a stool that has only two, a stool without a third leg or a fourth leg is not possible. You can't sit on it. I mean, you'd roll off. But so you need the third leg in order to make it stable in some level. Unfortunately, this is a toxic thing when it happens interpersonally. So let me give you an example how it shows up interpersonally. So you have a conflict with a good friend, and you and your friend are coming to loggerheads about it. You're just not working it out. Neither of you are understanding each other, and you're struggling, and you're both upset and hurt over it. What's the temptation to do? Well, the temptation is, because you're stuck, you're going to want to reach out to a third person and either involve them in some way. You're either going to look for validation to tell you that your side is right, that you're in the clear, you see it the right way, or you're going to step in and ask for them to use their pull to shift it with the other person in some way, maybe to go talk to the other person, or maybe get that person's perspective. But you're going to involve them in some way to kind of like work it out, act as a mediator between the two of you. The problem with this is that it never works. And because now you've made it a three-way problem, not a two-way problem, and you've just increased the complexity, and you're also asking that person to choose sides, as if your side's the right side and the other person's the wrong side, which you don't know that. We're just making an assumption, because we always think we're right. We never think the other person's right. So or we're tattling. Here's another thing. We're gossiping and we're tattling, sort of like a kid running to mom, hoping that somehow mom's going to come in as the heavyweight and straighten things out so that it goes the way that you want. It's a toxic maneuver whenever you see a third person involved. But it doesn't always have to be a third person. Sometimes we can do this with abstract things, like we'll pull in maybe HR at work, or maybe what we'll do is we'll go to Google and Google it, or now these days AI, ChatGPT, and ask for it to take a side. You know, what we're essentially doing is we feel like because we can't stand on our own merit, we can't find a way to articulate our way through the situation, that we're going to end up then somehow we're going to find a way to get both. Really, essentially what you're doing, you're saying that you have a weak position, and as a weak position, then you want to strengthen it with that third person. It just never works. So I would really recommend that when you see someone pulling in a third person, ask them not to. Say, can we just work this out between the two of us? And if you're feeling that pull, ask yourself why. Is it because you're feeling powerless? Is it because you're feeling like you're having a hard time articulating your position? Maybe that's a sign that you need to shift it in a different way, so that maybe you need to write it down. I mean, maybe there's another means of communication that will really make this an easier, better conversation than what you're doing. So just really be careful about triangulation. Here's another thing that people use triangulation, and this is what narcissists will do with triangulation. They'll use that third person as a way to create jealousy. They'll say, like, well, this person, they'll even use their past partners. Well, that partner in the past never had a problem with me. So it sometimes isn't just a real life conflict. Sometimes it's even your history. You'll triangulate your history. Well, I never heard this from anyone else before. There's another subtle sign of triangulation. Why are we talking about anyone else? Or this has nothing to do with your past partner. This has to do with this situation here now with the two of you. So really watch for that. And when we see that kind of conflict resolution style, you then know that you're talking to someone who's not very emotionally mature, that they struggle to be secure enough in their own position and to communicate their own point enough that they end up needing to bring in another person. And thanks, guys. Thanks for the compliments. I appreciate that. So those are 3 things. Watch for the subtle criticism, watch for triangulation, and then also, I forgot what my first one was. You guys know what it is. Yeah. Sorry about that. Oh, here's another one. Inconsistent behavior. I said there's more than 5. I was going to talk about 5, but I will give you more than 5. Inconsistent behavior. So you know that hot and cold stuff that you get, like one moment they're all into you and everything's the best and you feel like you've never been closer to anybody, and then maybe a few hours later, or maybe even because you said something, could be just something happened, then suddenly it goes cold and they shut down and they're distant, or maybe they didn't get their way. I just saw this. I wasn't watching. I don't know if you guys, I'm telling on myself now. I'm feeling a little embarrassed, but I really love Emily in Paris, and they just dropped the first, I think, 6 short sessions of Emily in Paris. And Emily is in love with Gabrielle, and Gabrielle has just broke up with Cami. And Cami and Gabrielle were a thing all along, and Cami says that she's pregnant. Well, Cami now has another partner, Sophia. Okay, so Cami and Sophia are partnered up, and then, yeah, I love Emily. And then Emily still have this thing for Gabrielle. They have this hope for each other, this love for each other. So Cami sees a baby rocking horse that she wants to buy for their new apartment, and Sophia says, "No, I want an art easel." And Cami then walks off and pouts. Literally, she kind of like breaks down and cries and pouts and basically shuts down. So they go from this really close moment Sophia and Cami are having, kind of like buying furniture for their new apartment as a couple, and suddenly, because Cami can't get what she wants, then she's going to shut down and pout until Sophia is forced to do something. When you see that kind of shift, and that's just one example of how those shifts happen, that's a person who's using emotions as a form of manipulation. They're using their affection or withholding of affection in order to get their way. It shows up this way. This is how my ex would do it. I would say something thinking we're having a normal conversation, literally, like normal voice. We're not upset. He's sharing something. This actually happened. I can think of a moment right now in my head. We're at a restaurant. He's sharing about what happened in his therapy session. His therapist asked him about why is he not moving to couples therapy. And I said, and I made a statement, like from my experience, why I've seen people be reluctant going to couples therapy. And I made that comment. Sometimes people are afraid for these reasons. That's all I said. Literally. And now I think this guy was looking for a reason to shut the argument down. I think he was like looking for a reason to be mad at me. He literally dropped cold. And he said, "I can't believe you said that." And I said what? "Oh, you know what you said." "No, I don't know what I said because I just gave you an observation from my experience as a therapist." "What was harmful or hurtful about that?" "Well, you know what you said." "No, I do not know what I said that you're reacting to." So even that, all of that's game playing, that playing hard to get and playing the victim. That's the other thing he's doing. He's playing the victim. He's been victimized by something that I said, but he can't tell me that something. So I said, "No, I don't know what I said. What did I say upset you?" "Well, you really upset me." So when you see that's a great example of that hot and cold shift that you sometimes experience with somebody, that literally it went from like intimate, it felt touching, felt like I was shocked he was trusting me, and then it literally like shifted from 0 to 180. That's a great example of somebody who's using hot and cold behavior as a way to be manipulative and to really like to be hurtful to you. To keep, what it does is it creates confusion. You're kept off balanced. You're like off footing. You now don't know what's wrong, and it makes you feel like you're to blame because somehow it happened in the relationship when really it's not actually it didn't happen in the relationship. This person's doing it as a form of manipulation, but it really makes it feel like you are somehow the person who did it. And they then that moment, they are taking on the role of victim and acting like you've been the offender. So watch out for that. Here's another example that I saw back in the dating days with this individual that I see. It's common, by the way. It's not just him. I think a lot of people do this. I think women women love to do this. So really be careful about this if you're a guy in the dating realm. And that is they act all interested in you, and then suddenly they just disappear. And they're hard to get a hold of. You may text them and there's no response, maybe even call, and your calls go to voicemail and you literally can't reach this person. And then you're suddenly wondering what happened? Why are they gone? And when they show back up, there's no explanation. Literally, there's no context. So your experience of it is that again, it makes you feel like you did something, that maybe you didn't respond. You assume responsibility at some level. I know for me, it made me think, well, maybe I didn't text fast enough, or maybe I didn't ask the right kind of questions. But it essentially then puts them in the driver's seat, gives them tremendous control over the relationship, over you, and then really makes you then open. You're very open and vulnerable at that point to being controlled by them. They're essentially using intermittent reinforcement. That's like Pavlov's dog. I don't know if you guys know that from psychology, but there is this very famous research where they had dogs in a cage. I know inhumane these days. I don't even know if that experiment would have been allowed, but they had dogs in a cage and they would ring. Actually, I think it was a light, or either ring a bell or they'd have a light turn on. And then whenever that happened, they would then drop food into the food bowl. And so it got to the point where the dogs, the minute they heard the bell or saw the light, they associated that with food. And so they began to salivate, anticipating food. So that's what happens is we get trained by those types of reinforcements to then take responsibility, which is what's so very toxic about that. Yeah, I agree with you on my way. It gets you to really questioning yourself about what did I do? How did I deserve this kind of like withholding of affection? So people who are respectful, who have empathy, who care about your feelings, are invested in the relationship, don't play games like that. They don't play games like that. If you're meeting somebody who's doing things like this, it's either done consciously, intentionally to groom you to be in a relationship and to be controlled by them, or they're just an emotionally immature person, and I would avoid them. I would not. I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with somebody who's that exploitive and manipulative, who lacks that kind of insight. And Beverly, I am so sorry I just described your household. That is so painful. Yeah, that to me is either a low emotional intelligence, a highly exploitive person, or somebody who's really cruel. That's what I would put in one of those categories. Here's another one that's really hurtful that we often don't recognize too, and that is conditional support. So really watch out for conditional support. What do I mean by that? I mean, for example, say that you have been pushing for a new promotion at work. It's really been a big deal. This is an important job for you. You've been putting in the hours. You've been very invested. And then something big happens, something wonderful happens. And about the time that happens to you, and you think you're going to have this big celebration as a couple because it's not only good for you, it's good for the two of you. And now your partner either has another conflict that they can't focus on. They can't focus on what's going on with you because of their conflict. It's like competition with you. Or they suddenly will then feel like they'll accuse you of making the job more important than them. So they've carried you along. And then all of a sudden when something really wonderful, then they fall apart and they don't show up, they pout. They'll actually like act hurt. Or they kind of like rain on your parade, you know? So watch out for the way that people sabotage and diminish or spoil your important moments. You know, we've all talked about how narcissists are terrible around holidays and they're terrible around your birthday. This is another example of that the support is good as long as it doesn't overly celebrate you. And the minute that it ends up going into the direction that makes them feel like you're getting too much attention or you're outshining them, or they maybe even feel like you're starting to feel confident. This is the really toxic piece. If you're in a partnership with somebody who can't bear you to think well of yourself, They want to like keep you down. If they get a sense that you're starting to feel really good about yourself, this is a way to sabotage your success and a way to keep you insecure and feeling insignificant in this relationship. This is one of the ways that it happened for me. My partner didn't always do it around things that are really big, because I don't know, he liked to take credit for it. That's what he would do. So when I got named top writer on Quora back in the day when Quora was doing that, he then sent out a note to everybody under the sun that his wife was named top writer. And then they all congratulated him. It was really weird. They weren't my relationship, so I wasn't hearing the congratulations. He was getting all of it. But here's how it happened. Near the end of the relationship, I started dieting, and it happened to go really well. I was being quite successful and losing weight as a result of it. So he one time made a comment that my legs were getting thinner, and then he made sure to buy snacks that I really liked and kept them in the house. You know, and I knew what he was up to. He was trying to sabotage me just to keep that from happening, because he didn't want me to. That's always the ironic part, is the very thing that the narcissist loves to diminish you about. The second you start to do well in that area, you know, start to like make it and be successful, they'll make sure to keep you from being successful. They want you to be a failure. They want that not to go well for you, as a way to kind of keep you insecure, off balance, and under their control. So I don't know how many of these are that I've named, but these are several of the many, many toxic signs that you're in a relationship with somebody who's very hurtful. I think I'm going to add one more, because this is a big one that we often miss. It's the difference between stonewalling and emotional withdrawal. Stonewalling is really toxic. It's in fact, it's one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, according to John Gottman's study. So John and Julie Gottman are this big researchers who looked at like couples over like a 20-year period. So it was a longitudinal study looking at successful relationships. Like, what was the difference between couples who stayed together and couples who broke up? And they found that they could predict, based upon identifying these 4 big pieces, these 4 big components or variables, they could predict with over 90% accuracy. Can you imagine that? 90% accuracy which relationships were going to make it and which relationships were not. And the 4 critical variables they found was instrumental to predicting a healthy relationship was criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and the last one was contempt. And if you'd like me to spend time on what each of those are, I'd be happy to. But let's talk about stonewalling or silent treatment. So essentially what that is it's a way to control the conversation by stop talking. So the minute the conversation goes in a direction that you don't like or makes you feel uncomfortable, or you want to control your partner, you just cease having the conversation. And it's really a great way to make the partner feel dismissed. End any meaningful communication between the two of you are now destroyed. Often you can't circle back, because once they've done that, they've essentially said that the conversation's over. So there's no circling back to that. So they're taking control of the discourse, and you're out of control of the discourse. Now, that's different from emotional shutdown. There are some people who become very emotionally overwhelmed, like hyperstimulated, their flight or fight's being triggered. And when that happens, then their prefrontal cortex goes offline and they can't think. They feel confused. They can't find their words. They're really stumbling to communicate. And because of that, now they can't put forth their opinion. So they just go quiet. Now, they're not trying to be punitive. They're not trying to teach you a lesson. They just literally are flooded, emotionally flooded. That's a very different dynamic, but it looks the same. So here's the thing to question and maybe to talk to your partner about. Ask them, are you just don't know what to say and you're emotionally overwhelmed? Do you need help with that? Or are you just shutting down? Now, a stonewaller would say, I don't need to say anything. And they would just storm off. They're telling you they've shut down. They're stonewalling you. But an emotionally overwhelmed person would say, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. This just always freaks me out, and I don't know what to do here. If that's what's happening, if it's an emotional overwhelm, what I would recommend that you guys do is take 30 minutes, set a timer, say, hey, we're going to both go off in our own directions, cool off, but we'll bookmark this spot, and we'll come back and we'll continue the discussion once we both have had a chance to start to feel better and breathe and take a moment. And you circle back and then you finish it. Now, sometimes 30 minutes is not enough. Sometimes you may have to take 60 minutes. But the point of it is that just because someone's emotionally overwhelmed, their sense of being triggered doesn't necessarily need to end the conversation. So just kind of consider that as a vehicle for possibly revisiting. Now, somebody just asked a great question. How does that differ from gray rock? Because you're right. Gray rock can feel that way to the toxic person's going to say, if you use gray rock on me, you're stonewalling me. You're just not willing to talk to me. You're shut down. Well, no, that's actually different. Okay, so what do I mean by gray rock? For anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, what happens in a lot of these relationships with narcissistic individuals is they like to pick a fight. They'll say something that's sort of intentionally ambiguous or controversial or conflictual, and they know that. They'll pick on you. Here's an example of how mine did it to me. We were getting ready to go to a trip, and we're packing. And for some reason, my ex loved to think that I packed too much. I don't know where he got that idea. I don't think I pack too much, but by the way, I'm not insecure about how much I pack. You can tell me you think I pack too much. You're not hurting my feelings. I don't care. But he thought somehow that was going to be some big thing to hurt me on. Oh yeah, he would say, oh yeah, we all know how much you like to pack. Now, see, that's a deliberate provocation. He's trying to get me into an argument. Gray rock would be to do nothing with that. To say, yeah, okay. Or shrug your shoulders. Or yep. Or so you say. You just say a bland, non-controversial, non-sarcastic, you got to hear that part, non-sarcastic comment that just sort of leads nowhere. In other words, what I'm essentially saying, this is my mom would say, you just don't bite. You don't take the bait. You don't bite. So there's no argument because you're not reacting in a way in which he wants why did you say that? Or I can't believe you think that of me. How did you ever get that up? I mean, see, that would be biting. And then off you are to the races. Now you guys are going into it. So that's what gray or yellow rock is. Yellow rock's a similar form to gray rock, but yellow rock is more friendly. You do the same thing, but it's more friendly. But do you see, I didn't shut down. I didn't stop talking to him. The next comment he made, he said, do you think that the new baby that's coming in the family, that his son and daughter-in-law would like that gift? I said, yeah, I think it's a lovely gift. See, I didn't stop talking. I just didn't react to his comment. Now, some people, more provocative narcissists would say, well, how come you're not responding? I mean, we all know how much you overpack. Why are you not saying anything? And to that, I'd just say, well, I'm not for sure why. That doesn't seem to be really important conversation because we're here buying a gift for a baby. I don't know. So essentially, if they confront you and you don't talk, it's not still stonewalling, but you're just not engaging. I mean, maybe it's I feel like are you trying to pick a fight? Well, no. Are you thinking I'm trying to pick a fight? Oh, maybe you're not. It just felt like maybe you were. That's why I wasn't saying anything. So I don't, stonewalling is essentially this, well, we all know how much you like to pack. And then I go silent. And then if he says, well, do you think the son-in-law and the son and the daughter-in-law would like this as a gift? I don't know. And I just turn around and I walk away, walk down the aisle from the grocery store. Yeah, that's stonewalling. But I didn't disengage. So that's the difference. Be careful of that, because here's what often is another big ploy that toxic people and narcissists love to do, is they love to take an idea like stonewalling and then attribute it to you. You're doing that. You're doing that, and they'll misattribute. It's not actually even accurate, because gray rocking is not stonewalling. You're just not biting. You're not being provoked into it. You're not letting your hot buttons get pushed. They want to push your hot buttons. And so then they'll say, well, now you're stonewalling me. I thought we said that stonewalling is wrong. Well, now that's the next hot button they're trying to push, is to make you feel like you can't even do therapy right. You can't even identify whatever you're doing correctly. But be careful for that. But when you see that, that's just another effort to be provocative. And your best bet is to remember Jade, don't justify, don't attack, don't defend, and don't explain. So what you could say to that, no, I'm not trying to stonewall you. That's all you need to say. No, I'm not trying to stonewall you. You don't need to apologize, because here's my inclination, and I'm trying to break the habit of, I'm sorry it feels that way. No, I'm not actually sorry it feels that way, because I'm not trying to be hurtful to you. So, really watch what you say, but just be non-confrontational, very bland, and don't engage in the conflict. That's the best way to avoid it. But stonewalling is punitive, it's controlling, it's an effort to essentially shut you down, make you know that whatever the issue is that you have an issue is not an issue, and it's not going to get the attention it deserves. It's a really punitive way of controlling victims. Yeah, somebody just said they've been getting silent treatment for 3 weeks. Jeez, yeah, and the other thing that silent treatment does is it knows there's a desire on the part of the person who's in the relationship to be connected. They know that we want to be connected, and so it's essentially saying, I'm withholding not only communication from you because you are not important to me, you're a non-person to me, but I'm also going to starve you. I'm going to relationally starve you and let you be lonely and feel isolated. That's my hope. My hope is that you feel abandoned and rejected so that it causes you pain. I'm trying to hurt you. I'm trying to cause pain to you. So be conscious of that. Now, the best way out of that is don't let it be painful. Now, I know that's not easy. It's easier said than done. It's just not easy because mine stonewalled me all the time. That's one of his favorite things to do. And it hurt. It really hurt. But the best advice you can do for it is use the time for yourself. Go do things that you want to do. See people that you should be seeing that is good for you, for your mental health. Go reconnect with friends. I know that's not easy to do, but doing that is super helpful because it's a way for you to, way for you to sort of self-soothe and also to really see yourself. So do the thing for you that they're not doing for you. They're not seeing you, they're not valuing you, but you can value you, you can see you. So that would be, I could recommend that. Okay, so I just covered the 5, actually more than 5 hidden signs of a narcissistic relationship. I want to wrap it up and then I'll start taking your questions. This is the big point I guess I want to make by talking about this today. We need to all, as a society, as a culture, get better at recognizing toxic behavior. And we need to stop making allowances for it. We should really, we shouldn't put up with it. That's really what I'm saying. Stop putting up with it. You deserve more. You deserve better. You deserve an emotionally healthy person who sees you, respects you, values you, cares about your feelings, knows how to show up for you. And even when they disagree with you, or maybe it's not your biggest fan, they do so in a way that still conveys that you're a human being and that your feelings matter. I was raised in a lot of toxicity where a lot of scapegoating and triangulating happened. I have to sometimes actively catch myself. I'll find myself feeling kind of insecure in some way. And in that moment of insecurity, I want to make one of my kids the butt of a joke. I'll actually hear myself before I say it and think, why are you doing that? You must be feeling shaky. That's a shitty thing. Don't do that to your kid. You love this person. Show that person respect. And I'll catch myself and stop doing it. If we could all just get better at this, better at caring about other people, showing people, treating them the way, it's back to the golden rule, treat others the way that you'd want to be treated. And if that's not something you'd want somebody to do to you, then don't do it to them. I think it really boils down to that simple of a situation, is just don't do it if you wouldn't want it being done to you. All right, so I'm going to now turn this part over to where I take your questions. I'm going to get my glasses on because I have a hard time seeing, although I still can sort of read what you're writing, but now I can really read what you're writing. I know that I try not to wear these because they're cheap. I bought them off Amazon, and so they're not, they're highly reflective, and I apologize for that. Yeah, remove their title. Would that treatment be all right? Exactly. That I agree with you, Gray Rock Cooking. That's a great thing to say. Thank you so much for joining me, you all, today. I really appreciate seeing you today. Yeah, it is hard. Toxic people hate birthdays and holidays. They just love to make it a mess. They just love to make it a mess. Which reminds me, I've been preparing for the Strong and Unstoppable retreat in October. So if you're a woman and you are out of a relationship, those are the 2 things. You got to be a woman, an adult. So that's 3. Woman and adult, and you're out of the relationship. We have 3 spots left for Strong and Unstoppable. Actually, maybe even 2 spots left. We might have sold the second. So if you would like to come and get help with understanding about how you show up in the world, how you are, maybe how the abuse has affected you, made you insecure, maybe the way that you're accidentally being too apologetic and too careful. Maybe you're even, nervous that you're stepping on other people's toes. Maybe you think you're coming across too hard and too fast, too hot, because you're like almost in the reverse direction. But if you really would like to get help and you want to do this with a small group of women at a great site being taken care of, where you get to show up, have meals and drinks. We're going to also do a firework Disney excursion. We're going to have an equine therapeutic experience where you won't be riding horses, but you'll be able to work with a horse and experience how communication happens with a horse to have better reflection of yourself, because they mirror us so well. But if you really want to get a good handle on how you interact with people, maybe in an unconscious way, yeah, exactly, why you keep attracting the same people, come to the Strong and Unstoppable retreat in October. Like I said, there's only a couple spots left. And I would love to have you come. It's October 3rd through the 6th, the 3rd through the 6th, and it's in Orlando, Florida. And if you show up and then get yourself to the event, then we take care of everything from the event forward, so that you don't need to think of another thing. You just get to come and experience it and learn, and it's going to be amazing. And if you can't make October's, there's another one in February called Rising Strong Restoration. That's going to be in February 19th through the 22nd, I think. It's 5 days at a private location with a private pool on the ocean front. And so you get really pampered and taken care of. Again, all the food, everything's included once you arrive. On that one, we're going to do an excursion of a cenote. We're going to go out to, it's in Mexico. The one in February is in Mexico. And another big event I got coming up is we have a few spots left for Healing Strong. It's a 12-week group coaching program, again, for those who are healing from narcissistic abuse. It doesn't need to be a romantic partner, any kind of narcissistic abuse. If you're literally looking for help to get over your rage, the guilt, the fact you're not going to get any justice, what do you do with the feeling of shame? You would like help for 12 weeks, again, in a small group. That starts in September 5th. It goes for 12 weeks. We got a few more spots. So how can you get support as a man? By the way, we tried to offer a retreat for men. We had absolutely no interest from men at all. It was going to be called Unleash Your Potential. I'm still open to doing something with men, but here's the thing. I don't know how to advertise it to men and have men be interested. I don't know how to do that. So here's the problem. A lot of men don't see themselves as victims of abuse. They'll tell you stories of abuse. I mean, it's clear that someone's abused them, but they'll say, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. So, when you advertise this kind of stuff, they don't see themselves as applying to them. So yeah, as much as I wanted to do that, I just haven't seen the kind of interest. So if I could see the interest, I'd be very open to doing that. The retreat in October there's two prices, depending on a shared room or a private room. The shared room is $2,800. The private room is $3,800. So again, like you arrive on Thursday and you leave on Sunday. So, and it's all included: drinks, lodging, all the workshops, the excursion. Like I said, we're going to do an equine therapeutic retreat experience where you actually go to equestrian center. We're also going to do a Disney cruise fireworks one evening. All of that's included in the price. And we look for 20% as a deposit, but on the other hand, it's coming up really fast. So you have to be ready to make the deposit and pretty much in the next few weeks pay it off. So that doesn't give you a whole lot of time. Kate, that's an interesting question. I don't know if Raw Motivation's kind of going in a different direction. And I'm not for sure his audience is male. I think he really appeals to females. Yeah. And maybe men do prefer to see other men. I don't know. I'm not for sure men feel that way. It's interesting. Back in the day, the thought was in therapy as clients, men tended to prefer to see female therapists because they tend to talk to women about emotional things, not other men. Other men, they often feel like they have to put up a front. Maybe that's changed. Maybe that's not the case anymore. But GMB, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for being a subscriber of mine on YouTube. Yeah, so whenever you're around, you get no peace. You get woken up. You can't even get a break. That isn't, thank you for bringing that up. That's another big experience of abuse, is that they just don't give you they don't respect your space. I guess I'm trying to think of a way to say it. They don't respect your space. They don't respect your need for sleep, your need for hunger. They don't respect even when you're sick. You end up just sort of like expected to show up and be on, or you're expected not to have needs. You know, they really override that. Thank you for bringing that. That is another big hidden sign of narcissistic abuse, when you just don't even have the space to do that. Yes, Lee Hammock does run a couple men's groups. Yeah, I know Lee. I've thought of talking to him about that, but I think Lee and Lisa and I are going to do something together next year in Toronto. So I'm going to involve him in a different way. It will be for men and women. So yeah, that would be a chance for to do that. So your therapist is male. You've had to talk to him into seeing you. He typically works with women. That's interesting. It's interesting he only works with women. That's really intriguing. I find that very intriguing. Huh. So for Leanne asked, for the first date, he'd pick up the tab for a couple's massage and lunch. Is that love bombing? First of all, my reaction to that is, a first date? You're going to have a couple's massage on the first date? No judgment. I don't mean, I realize that sounded really like snarky. I'm not meaning to be snarky. I guess my reaction is I would feel uncomfortable having a couple's massage on a first date. To me, it's a little intense. That to me is too intrusive. I wouldn't know anybody that well to want to do that. If it was girlfriend, that would be one thing. If a person offered to pay me to be able to have that with a friend, yeah, well, I wouldn't say no to that. But I would feel very vulnerable. Yeah, I agree, Kate. The Manny Petty idea maybe feels like a better idea. It does feel a little too over the top, though. I love the fact that this person wants to spend money on you. That part's kind of nice, but it feels the couple's massage part feels like it has, my gut instinct to that feels like there's another purpose. They want to see you half naked or semi-naked or maybe naked. I just feel like there's ulterior motives. I had somebody want to do a first date and they wanted to go to a swimming pool at a hotel. I'm like, why? Because you want me in a bathing suit and me half naked in a pool? You want to be feeling me up in the pool? I said, no, that's not a first date. I'm not interested in that. Then this person came back and said, well, then can you wear a dress? And I kept thinking, no, this person wants to slip their hand up. No. I'm not. So I came in jeans. I didn't. And you know what? I found out the guy we didn't get past the first date. It was a liar. So that was it. Yeah. Okay. So Sam wrote, such bad cognitive dissonance with a trauma bond. You can't break free. Cancel the divorce for the second time. He's stalling me at night in our garden. And he's a therapist. He's a therapist as well. Yeah. I have seen that, by the way, Sam. You're not the first person to describe to me how clinicians can be sick. I don't think we often appreciate that just because a person has a position of power or authority, even in the healing realm, that necessarily means that they're healthy. I can unfortunately attest to knowing my colleagues back in the day when I was practicing that I knew who were the narcissists and I knew some of the shitty stuff they were pulling. So I'm sorry to hear that. And probably the other part that you're really struggling with, Sam, is because he's a clinician, he really understands how to be manipulative, psychologically manipulative with his words, his tactics. He knows the confusion he's creating in you. I have a feeling it's really, really tough. I'm not surprised you're struggling to break free. Now, I hope that it takes most victims an average of 7 times before they can get out. So you please be careful on yourself. Treat yourself very lightly around it being your second attempt and still struggling. That's a real common problem. Because because they keep saying all the right things and we think that they're really going to make an effort this time, that somehow something happened in some way that they got the point and they're now sincerely going to be investing in the relationship. Unfortunately, that's usually a lie. Or the other thing they've done is they have made it so scary with the intimidation and threats that you feel like you're going to lose so much that you don't know if you can bear the cost, what it's going to cost you. I got both ends of that, and usually they pull out both. They do both to you. They give you everything that you've ever wanted. I don't know if you guys saw that video I posted. I didn't post it on YouTube because it's too long. I hate the fact that YouTube shorts only allow for 60 seconds. Because TikTok really likes longer ones these days. I think it's like almost a 4-minute video that I posted where this guy in front of a judge asked his ex if ex-partner, if she would get married and just drop this nonsense of this court case. I love it. The judge's response was priceless. His jaw like wanted to drop, like, what did you just say? And the guy then again proposes when he's had this PPO order with his ex, and the judge says, you just broke that order in front of a judge, and I should punish you. Now, what frustrated me was the judge didn't punish him. I felt that guy should have had a big hand slap for that, because the arrogance of that. But that's a typical example of what toxic people will do. They think they're like above it. I mean, this guy is doing this in front of a judge, and he thinks that he can do that. Like, the audacity of that, it's just incredible. So yeah, I understand, Sam, why you're struggling. It makes sense that you're struggling. Oh, so now he's sending you links when your partner blames you of everything. I only ever told him the facts of his abuse. Now he's flipping the script and calling me abuser. Yeah, Danu, that is common. That is so common. I'm so sorry that it's happening to you. Hey, this is one, both of you are bringing up a point to me. I've described two things that probably right now would not work because you guys have not left the relationship. So Healing Strong is for those who are healing and would like help healing, working through the guilt, the grief, the rage, the injustice. And then the retreats are also, again, for those who are out and healing. But Sam and Danu, did you guys know that I have a membership, a toxic-free relationship club with both a community component for $15 a month, as well as a group live component where we meet weekly for group coaching for $75 a month. So you get 4 weeks of group coaching for $75 a month. Now, anybody who's been on my live knows that I always say this: don't let the cost deter you. If you need that support and you're interested and you want to be part of a small group community, approach me, talk to me about what you can financially afford, and we will make an arrangement. I make arrangements all the way from minimal amount of money to normal price for both of those. So please, I don't want your financial situation, because I know 99% of us are being financially abused. I know that. So I feel like I put so much importance on you getting support than I do on the fact of me making a buck. So Danu and Sam, if you would like the help of a group who can support you while you figure out your next step, please reach out about the Toxic Free Relationship Club. Yeah. So how do you come to terms with reactive abuse? So Nerdy Dirty Beats, what a great Nerdy Dirty Beats. I love that. It almost rolls off the tongue. Please, why don't you say more about the terms of what terms about reactive abuse are you talking about? And yeah, Fleur, I appreciate you bringing up about courts and judges, because next week you guys are going to want to listen to the podcast, Breaking Free from Narcissistic Abuse. We talk a lot about how to prepare for family court, and also have a newsletter. So the newsletter is a free component and a paid component. Again, we talk a lot about how to win in family court against a narcissist. And it features Lisa Sunny. If you guys don't know her, Stronger Than Before, we talk a lot about the strategies that we get wrong, the mindset that we go in with that hurts us. So all those types of things. If you're interested in getting more of that, consider signing up for the subscriber. Will I be on Angela? Will Angela be on the podcast? Kate, that is a fantastic idea. I will reach out to Angela and have her on the podcast. Thank you for that. Right now, I've just scheduled Peter Salerno. Have you guys heard of Peter Salerno? He's another clinician who's been doing some research on narcissists and the mindset of a narcissist. I'm going to have him on in October. And before that, I will have Erin Leonard, who wrote a recent book. I can't think of the title. She's another clinician. I think she's a psychologist who talks about attachment disorders with narcissists. And then I have Lynn Strathedy, who's on as the echo chamber. So if you guys haven't followed Lynn, you should. Lynn has all this information on egoism, which is really the opposite of narcissism. Amazing content, amazing content. Her name, again, a handle is The Echo Chamber. She's going to be on soon. I also have her on the podcast talking about egoism. What is it? How do we get trained to be an egoist? Why do we struggle really having much of a self? Why are we afraid of taking risks and stepping out? So yes, that's Lynn's handle. Thank you, Kate, for that. So yeah, it's really amazing. So those are my upcoming guests. I just heard Joe Navarro on the sisters cracking up, and they gave me his contact info. So Joe Navarro wrote the book called The Four Dangerous Personality Disorders, or The Four Most Dangerous Personalities. So I'm gonna reach out to have him. I want to talk to him about the 4 dangerous personalities. I think that would be, he was such a great guest on their show. I mean, easy guy to listen to, fascinating to listen to. So I'm excited to have Joe Navarro. I'm going to reach out. Hopefully we'll have him on later this year. So yeah, I've got a really good lineup of guests coming, and I'm super excited about that. All right, I'm realizing it's 5 o'clock. I do need to wrap it up here, but I want to take any last questions that just come in. Yeah, Sheena, Jack, you not being able to stop that post-separation harassment, that is common. Did you guys know that I have a new group called New Powerful You exactly for post-separation abuse? If you'd like help navigating that, stopping that kind of like nonsense, please check out the New Powerful You. Okay, so what do you say when he says, I just don't know what to say, and goes silent during conflict attempts? TFFFF, are you able to circle back and finish the conversation once he cools off? That's the big difference, because stonewalling may be, I don't know what to say and go silent. It could be an excuse, or it could be an exactly he's describing what's happening. So I would circle back. If he then says, well, now that it's over, I don't want, why are you digging it back up? Why are you bringing up the past? Then he's being manipulative, and that's stonewalling. But if he's just still, you know, he forgets to talk about it later. That's why I'm recommending you do the 30-minute deal. So what you say to him, okay, so you can't talk about it for right now. Let's set a timer for 30 minutes and come back and finish the conversation. If he's not willing to do that, then that's toxic. That's not emotional overwhelm. He's just controlling the conversation by becoming the victim. OB Han, thank you so much for being a subscriber. I really appreciate it. Do you guys know on YouTube that I've just increased and improved the Super Thriver level, the top level? Now you get access to all of the podcast extra exclusive interviews, all of them. There are like 21 of them now, and it includes people like Bill Eddy and Dr. Carter and all, you know, I'm trying to think of the other people. Oh, Jessica Kent is one of them. So every person I have on the podcast going forward is going to have a private exclusive interview that is not released to the public, and it's only for subscribers. And I'm going to make that available for TikTok as well. I will give you guys that playlist. So you've subscribed on here as a subscriber on TikTok or on YouTube, then you guys get access to that. It's at the $7 level or at the $5 level on TikTok. But yeah, so I'm going back to that question. Do I have any advice about how to stay calm when they're being provoked? Yeah, and you have to go to court soon. That's tough. I would recommend you breathe and remind yourself this is not about you. Remind yourself that this person wants to be provocative, and it's not your job to determine the truth, but just your job to represent yourself as best as you can by sharing your side. And here's the other hard part. We often end up feeling, when we still are reactive, it's because we care. I know you say you don't care, but there's a part of you that is still connected and invested in this person, maybe negatively, maybe in a negative direction, like you're so angry, but you're still emotional. It's what's called emotional fusion. So if they're able to rile you up, you still have an emotional fusion with this individual. So really take a long, hard look at what it is that you want from this person. Maybe it's the truth. Maybe it is for them to recognize you. Maybe it's for justice. Maybe you just wish somehow they would like hear how much they have hurt you. But if you can recognize what it is that you're pushing for, then by you then acknowledging that and then saying this is not coming from this person, it can really help you break free so that you become detached. Because the truth of the matter is they're never going to give you any of that. They're only in it for themselves and what they can get out of this. So, and they want to provoke you because then that makes them look good and makes you look bad. You know, feel free to reach out to me, Obihan, and we can talk more about it so as you get closer to the court. I'd be happy to do that. All right, you guys, this has been really, really rich. I'm going to jump over to my Toxic Free Relationship Club. Remember, don't go it alone. Don't go it alone. Really, there is community support, and I'm more than happy to offer you financial help if you need it, but please find community support. All right, you guys, it's so wonderful seeing you today and being here. Next week, we'll be talking about how to win in court against a narcissist. So that's going to be next week's topic. I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. I'm going to talk about the big number one mistake we all make walking into court. That's what we're going to talk about. All right, you guys, take care, and I will see you here next week.